The twin suns of Kepler 442b cast long shadows across the sprawling agricultural domes of Colony 7. Inside Dome Delta 9, rows of modified wheat swayed gently under artificial breezes, their golden stalks reaching toward the filtered sunlight. The harvest season had arrived, and with it came the yearly influx of temporary workers from across the galaxy. Commander Zara Thex of the Galactic Defense Corps adjusted her environmental suit as she stepped into the dome's humid atmosphere. Her silver-scaled skin glistened with moisture almost immediately, and her forearms moved with practiced efficiency as she secured her breathing apparatus. The reptilian officer had been assigned to investigate reports of suspicious activity in the outer colonies, and Colony 7 had recently appeared on several intelligence reports. The dome bustled with activity as dozens of workers moved between the crops. Zara's keen eyes swept across the scene, cataloging each species present. She spotted vortac beetles clicking their mandibles as they harvested grain, their 6 legs carrying them swiftly between rows. A group of crystalline silicates stood motionless, absorbing nutrients from the soil through their feet while simultaneously tending to nearby plants. Gas-form ethereals drifted overhead, their translucent bodies shimmering as they monitored atmospheric conditions. And then there were the humans. Zara's gaze lingered on them with barely concealed disdain. 3 humans worked in the far section of the dome, their pale pink skin already reddening under the artificial suns despite their protective clothing. They moved with the clumsy, inefficient motions typical of their species, constantly stopping to wipe sweat from their faces or adjust their tools. Humans were a relatively new addition to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 2 centuries ago. Most species regarded them as a curiosity at best, a nuisance at worst. They were weak, short-lived, and possessed no natural advantages that other species couldn't exceed. Their homeworld was a backwater planet on the rim of civilized space, and their technology was considered primitive by galactic standards. What truly puzzled Zara was why humans insisted on taking these manual labor jobs. With their frail bodies and limited lifespans, they seemed ill-suited for physical work. Yet they appeared throughout the galaxy, always willing to take the jobs that required the most effort for the least pay. It was almost as if they were deliberately seeking hardship. She focused her attention on one human in particular, a male who appeared to be in his middle years by human standards. He was tall for his species, though still shorter than Zara's impressive height, with dark hair that was beginning to show traces of gray. His clothes were simple work garments, stained with soil and plant matter. He moved methodically through his assigned section, harvesting wheat with steady, practiced motions. There was something about him that caught her attention, though she couldn't quite identify what it was. Perhaps it was the way he held himself, or the fact that despite his apparent exhaustion, he never seemed to slow down or complain. While the other humans frequently paused to rest or socialize, this one maintained a consistent pace throughout the day. Zara approached the dome's supervisor, a rotund gaseous being named Vrix, who existed in a specialized containment suit that allowed him to maintain his form in the dome's atmosphere. The suit was transparent, revealing the swirling blue and green gases that comprised his body. "Supervisor Vrix," she said, activating her universal translator. "I'm conducting a routine security inspection. I need information about your temporary workers." Vrix's gaseous form swirled nervously within his suit. "Of course, Commander. Though I must say, we've had no problems with any of our workers. They're all properly documented and cleared through the Colonial Employment Bureau. I'm particularly interested in your human workers," Zara continued, gesturing toward the 3 humans. "How long have they been employed here?" "The humans? Oh, they arrived about 3 weeks ago on the transport ship Wandering Star. Standard agricultural workers seeking seasonal employment. The tall one there is Marcus Chen, been working the night shift mostly. Very reliable, never causes trouble." Zara studied Marcus more carefully. "Night shift? That's unusual for harvest work. He requested it specifically. Said he preferred working when it was cooler. Can't blame him, really. Humans don't handle heat well." Vrix's gases churned in what might have been amusement. "Though I will say, he's surprisingly efficient. Gets through more work than most humans twice his size." This information only deepened Zara's interest. She spent the next several hours observing the workers, noting their patterns and behaviors. The other humans, a younger male and an older female, worked together and chatted frequently. They took regular breaks, shared meals, and generally behaved as Zara expected manual laborers to behave. Marcus Chen was different. He worked alone, spoke to no one unless directly addressed, and seemed to have an almost supernatural awareness of his surroundings. Several times, Zara noticed him pause in his work and look around, as if he had sensed something that others missed. His movements, while appearing casual to a surface observer, had an underlying precision that suggested training far beyond agricultural work. As the day shift ended, and the dome's lighting dimmed to simulate evening, Zara decided to maintain surveillance. If Marcus was indeed working the night shift, she wanted to observe his behavior when he thought no one was watching. She positioned herself in the dome's observation deck, using her enhanced vision to monitor the work areas below. The night shift was much smaller, consisting of only a handful of workers. Most were species that preferred cooler temperatures or had enhanced night vision. Marcus arrived precisely at the shift change, exchanging brief nods with the departing day workers but engaging in no conversation. What Zara witnessed over the next several hours fundamentally challenged her assumptions about humans. Marcus moved through the dome with fluid efficiency, his earlier apparent clumsiness completely absent. He worked in patterns that maximized both speed and harvest yield, completing tasks that should have taken hours in mere minutes. More disturbing was his constant vigilance. Every few minutes, he would pause and scan his surroundings with the practiced eye of someone accustomed to danger. His hearing seemed impossibly acute for a human. He reacted to sounds that Zara's enhanced senses barely detected. When a small maintenance drone malfunctioned and crashed in a distant section of the dome, Marcus immediately moved toward the sound, his posture suggesting he was prepared for potential threats. But it was what happened near the end of his shift that truly captured Zara's attention. A group of Catherian smugglers, recognizable by their distinctive insectoid features and illegal modifications, entered the dome through a service entrance. They moved stealthily, clearly believing themselves unobserved, heading toward a storage area where high-value processed grains were kept. Zara reached for her communication device, preparing to call for backup, but paused when she saw Marcus's reaction. The human had immediately noticed the intruders, though they were several hundred meters away and moving in near complete silence. Rather than raising an alarm or fleeing, Marcus calmly set down his harvesting tools and began moving toward the storage area. The Catherians numbered 4, each armed with energy weapons and protected by personal shields. They were professional criminals, enhanced with illegal cybernetics that made them faster and stronger than their natural forms. Against such opponents, a single human agricultural worker should have been utterly helpless. Marcus approached them with the same calm efficiency he had shown while working. The first Kytherian never saw him coming. One moment the alien was attempting to override the storage facility's lock. The next he was unconscious on the ground, his weapon missing. Marcus had moved with impossible speed and silence, dispatching the smuggler without triggering any of the others' awareness. The second Catherian fell moments later, taken down by a precise strike to a nerve cluster that Marcus should not have known existed. It was only when the third smuggler spun around, weapon raised, that Zara saw Marcus draw his blade. It was not the crude metal knife she had expected from an agricultural worker. The weapon that appeared in Marcus's hand hummed with energy, its edge glowing with a soft blue light that indicated sophisticated manufacturing. The blade itself was elegant and deadly, clearly designed for combat rather than utility. But more than the weapon itself, it was the way Marcus held it that made Zara's blood run cold. His stance was perfect, balanced, and ready. His grip spoke of years of training and countless hours of practice. This was not a farmer carrying a tool for protection. This was a warrior who had drawn his sword. The remaining Catherians realized their danger almost too late. They opened fire simultaneously, their energy weapons creating brilliant flashes in the dome's dim lighting. Marcus moved like liquid shadow, the glowing blade deflecting energy bolts with impossible precision. Each movement was economical and deadly, Wasted motion eliminated through what must have been decades of training. The fight, if it could even be called that, lasted less than 30 seconds. When it was over, all 4 Catherians lay unconscious, their weapons scattered, and their illegal cybernetics disabled by precise strikes. Marcus stood among them, not even breathing heavily, his blade already sheathed and hidden once again beneath his worker's clothing. Zara remained frozen in the observation deck, her mind struggling to process what she had witnessed. The human who had spent days appearing clumsy and weak had just single-handedly defeated 4 enhanced criminals with an ease that would have impressed veteran soldiers of any species. Marcus calmly activated his communication device and spoke in the measured tones of someone giving a professional report. "Control, this is Agent Chen. 4 Catherian smugglers neutralized at Colony 7, Dome Delta 9. Request pickup for interrogation and processing." The response came immediately, in a voice that spoke with obvious authority. "Acknowledged. Agent Chen. Transport en route. Maintain cover until further orders." "Understood," Marcus replied. Then began the process of restraining the unconscious criminals with restraints that had definitely not been part of his agricultural equipment. As Zara watched the human work with professional efficiency, securing the crime scene and gathering evidence, she began to understand that everything she thought she knew about humans was wrong. Marcus Chen was not a simple field hand seeking honest work. He was an agent of some organization, operating under deep cover in the most remote corners of civilized space. But what organization? And what were they investigating that required such elaborate deception? The implications were staggering. If one human agricultural worker was actually a highly trained operative, how many others were there? Were all humans secretly agents? Or was Marcus part of a select group? More troubling still was the level of his capabilities. The speed, precision, and tactical awareness he had displayed were beyond anything in Zara's experience. She had fought alongside elite soldiers of dozens of species, but none had moved with the deadly grace she had just witnessed. As transport ships arrived to collect the prisoners, Zara made a decision that would change her understanding of humanity forever. Rather than reporting her observations immediately, she would continue watching. She needed to know more about Marcus Chen and the organization he represented. But more than that, she needed to understand what the implications were for the galaxy as a whole. If humans were not the weak, primitive species everyone believed them to be, if they were instead a civilization of warriors and spies operating throughout galactic space under perfect cover, then the balance of power in the galaxy was not what anyone thought it was. Zara settled in for a long watch, knowing that her investigation had just taken a turn towards something far more significant than smuggling or colonial crime. She was on the verge of uncovering what might be the galaxy's best-kept secret, and she had a feeling that once she learned the truth about humanity, there would be no going back. 3 days passed before Zara could bring herself to make contact with Marcus Chen. During that time, she conducted her own investigation into human activities throughout the sector. What she discovered disturbed her more than she cared to admit. Humans were everywhere. On trade stations, agricultural worlds, mining operations, and research facilities. Humans worked in positions that seemed beneath their intelligence level. They served as janitors on high-security installations, mechanics on military vessels, and laborers on worlds where other species barely survived. Yet now that she knew what to look for, Zara began to see patterns that had been invisible before. Human workers on the mining station at Proxima Centauri had been the first to report unusual seismic activity that led to the discovery of Kytherian tunneling operations. A human maintenance worker at the diplomatic station near Vega had noticed irregularities in communication traffic that exposed a spy ring. Human agricultural consultants had been present on 17 different worlds, where major criminal enterprises had been disrupted in the past year alone. It was not coincidence. It was coordination on a massive scale. Zara approached Marcus during his break period, finding him sitting alone outside Dome Delta 9 with a simple meal of processed protein and synthetic fruit. He looked up as she approached, and for just a moment, she saw something flicker in his eyes that confirmed her suspicions. He recognized her as a threat, assessed her capabilities, and calculated response options, all in the space of a heartbeat. Then the expression vanished, replaced by the bland pleasantness she had come to expect from human workers. "Commander," he said, setting down his meal and starting to stand. Please, don't get up, Zara said, settling her large frame onto a nearby supply crate. I wanted to speak with you about the other night. Marcus's face showed no reaction, but she noticed his body language shift almost imperceptibly. His weight balanced on the balls of his feet, ready for sudden movement. His hands remained visible but positioned where they could quickly reach hidden weapons. I'm sorry, Commander, but I'm not sure what you mean. I was sleeping during the night shift 3 days ago. I understand there was some trouble with smugglers, but I wasn't involved. It was a good lie, delivered with exactly the right amount of confusion and concern. If Zara hadn't witnessed the events herself, she would have believed him completely. I saw you, Marcus, she said quietly. I saw what you did to those Kytherians. I saw your blade. I heard your report. The silence stretched between them for nearly a minute. Marcus continued eating his meal, but Zara could see him thinking, weighing options, making calculations. Finally, he sighed and set down his food. What do you want? He asked, and his voice carried a completely different tone. The humble deference was gone, replaced by the quiet authority of someone accustomed to command. Answers, Zara replied, starting with who you really are. Marcus studied her carefully, those dark eyes seeming to look straight through her. My name really is Marcus Chen. I really am working in this agricultural dome. Everything else is classified at levels that don't exist in your clearance structure. Try me. Your Galactic Defense Corps, Intelligence Division, Level 7 clearance. You've been investigating unusual criminal activity in the outer colonies for the past 6 months. Your record shows commendable service, but no exposure to deep black operations. Marcus recited her credentials with casual precision. You're not cleared for this conversation. The fact that he knew her classified service record sent chills through Zara's body. How do you know that information? Because we know everything, Commander. That's what we do. Marcus reached into his pocket and withdrew what appeared to be a standard communication device. However, when he activated it, holographic displays materialized in the air between them, showing data streams that made Zara's advanced military equipment look primitive. The displays showed real-time intelligence from across the galaxy, criminal organizations, political movements, trade disputes, technological developments, military buildups, and dozens of other categories of information flowed past in streams of data that would have overwhelmed the processing capabilities of most galactic governments. This is impossible, Zara whispered. No single organization could gather intelligence at this scale. You're right, Marcus agreed. No single organization could. But humanity isn't a single organization. We're a species that spent thousands of years learning how to wage war against ourselves. When we finally achieved peace, we discovered we had become very, very good at gathering information, infiltrating enemy organizations, and conducting operations without being detected. He manipulated the displays, bringing up specific data streams. The Kytherian smuggling ring you've been investigating? We've been tracking them for 8 months. The weapons they're moving aren't for standard criminal purposes. They're building towards something much larger. Images appeared showing weapon stockpiles, training facilities, and communication intercepts. The scope of the operation was far beyond anything Zara had imagined. The Kytherians aren't the real problem, Marcus continued. They're being funded and supplied by the hegemony. Zara's blood went cold. The hegemony was a coalition of advanced species that controlled the central systems of the galaxy. Officially, they maintained peaceful relations with all other civilizations. If they were secretly funding criminal enterprises in the outer colonies, the implications were staggering. That's impossible, she said. The hegemony has no interest in the outer colonies. They consider us too primitive to be worth their attention. Exactly what they want you to think. Marcus brought up new displays, showing shipping records, financial transactions, and communication intercepts. The outer colonies control 60% of the galaxy's rare mineral production. The hegemony has been systematically destabilizing colonial governments and supporting criminal organizations to keep the regions divided and weak. When the time is right, they plan to move in as peacekeepers and establish direct control. The evidence was overwhelming and damning. Zara stared at the data streams, her mind racing through the implications. If the hegemony succeeded in their plan, her people and dozens of other species would become subject populations, their resources stripped away to feed the advanced civilizations of the core systems. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. "Because humanity has a problem with bullies," Marcus said simply. "We spent most of our history being oppressed by stronger powers. When we achieved the technology to reach the stars, we made a collective decision that we wouldn't let it happen to others. But your people are scattered across the galaxy in menial jobs. You have no military, no government presence, no apparent coordination." Marcus smiled, and for the first time since their conversation began, it seemed genuinely warm. "Commander, you're thinking like a traditional military strategist. You see power in terms of ships, weapons, and formal structures. But the most effective way to fight a war is to make sure your enemy never realizes they're in one." New displays appeared, showing the true scope of human operations. On thousands of worlds, in hundreds of organizations, humans worked in positions that gave them access to information, resources, and strategic locations. They served as advisors to colonial governments, technicians on military installations, traders who moved freely between systems, and laborers who could go anywhere without attracting suspicion. "Every human in space is a potential intelligence asset," Marcus explained. "We don't have a centralized military because we don't need one. When action is required, we coordinate through networks that exist below the detection threshold of any galactic government. We've been preparing for the hegemony's move for the past 50 years. Preparing how? By making ourselves indispensable to every civilization they plan to conquer. By learning their languages, their customs, their technologies, by earning their trust and demonstrating our value as allies." Marcus gestured toward the agricultural dome. "When the hegemony makes their move, they'll discover that the primitive humans they've been ignoring have been building relationships and gathering intelligence throughout their target zones." Zara felt a mixture of admiration and fear as she processed this information. Humanity had essentially been conducting a covert war preparation campaign on a galactic scale, and no one had noticed because their methods were so far removed from traditional military thinking. "What happens when they realize what you've been doing?" "They won't," Marcus said confidently. "By the time they understand the scope of human operations, it'll be too late. We'll have turned their own strategies against them. Every criminal organization they've funded, every corrupt official they've supported, every destabilization operation they've conducted, we have records of all of it. When the time comes, we'll present the evidence to the Galactic Council and watch the hegemony's political influence collapse overnight. And if they decide to use military force instead," Marcus's expression grew serious. "Then they'll discover that humans have been learning more than just intelligence gathering during our time in space. Every species has shared their knowledge with us, thinking we were harmless students. We've absorbed fighting techniques, weapons, technology, and tactical concepts from hundreds of civilizations. We've had 2 centuries to study galactic military doctrine and develop countermeasures." He brought up a new display showing human facilities hidden throughout the galaxy, training centers disguised as agricultural research stations, weapons development labs operating as mining operations, and communication networks embedded within commercial trading systems. "The blade I carry isn't human technology," Marcus continued. "It's a synthesis of techniques learned from 17 different species, manufactured using hybrid technologies that no single civilization has developed. Every human operative carries similar equipment, and we've been refining our capabilities for decades." Zara stared at the displays, trying to comprehend the scope of what she was seeing. Humanity had essentially become a hidden galactic superpower, while maintaining the appearance of a minor, primitive species. "Why reveal this to me?" she asked again. "Because the hegemony is accelerating their timeline. Intelligence suggests they plan to begin their operation within the next 6 months. We need allies among the colonial governments, and your reputation suggests you're someone who can be trusted with this information." Marcus deactivated the displays and looked directly at Zara. "The question is, what are you going to do with what you've learned? You can report this to your superiors and watch the galaxy burn when the hegemony makes their move. Or you can help us prevent a catastrophe that will enslave billions of beings. The weight of decisions settled on Zara's shoulders. Everything she thought she knew about galactic politics, human capabilities, and the balance of power had been shattered in the space of one conversation. But more than that, she now carried knowledge that could determine the fate of her own people and countless others. She looked at Marcus, this human who had masqueraded as a simple agricultural worker, while carrying secrets that could reshape the galaxy. The casual competence with which he had presented information that no single individual should have been able to access spoke to resources and capabilities that defied everything she had been taught about humanity. What exactly are you asking me to do? 6 months later, Zara stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Sovereign's Grace, watching as the greatest deception in galactic history reached its climax. The massive hegemony fleet hung in space before them, hundreds of advanced warships arranged in perfect formation, their weapons trained on the colonial worlds of the Kepler system. Admiral Vex Thrain, the hegemony's supreme military commander, appeared on the main screen in his full ceremonial armor. His species, the Dominari, were tall, imposing beings with metallic skin and cold, calculating eyes. They had ruled the galactic core for over 1,000 years, and their arrogance was legendary. Colonial forces, Vex Thrain announced in his resonant voice. You are hereby ordered to surrender unconditionally. Your governments have proven incapable of maintaining order in these systems. The hegemony will assume administrative control for the benefit of galactic stability. Zara activated her communication array, broadcasting to the entire hegemony fleet. Admiral Vex Thrain, this is Commander Zara Thex of the Colonial Defense Alliance. We reject your ultimatum. These systems are sovereign territories recognized by the Galactic Council. Vex Thrain's laugh was harsh and dismissive. The Galactic Council holds no authority here, primitive. Your ragtag collection of inferior species poses no threat to hegemony forces. You have 1 hour to comply, or we will demonstrate the futility of resistance. As the transmission ended, Zara allowed herself a small smile. If only Vex Thrain knew what was about to happen to his perfect fleet. The past 6 months had transformed Zara's understanding of warfare, politics, and human capabilities. Working with Marcus and his network of operatives, she had witnessed the most sophisticated intelligence and sabotage operation in galactic history. Every aspect of the hegemony's secret plan had been documented, analyzed, and countered. Marcus materialized beside her, no longer bothering with the disguise of an agricultural worker. He wore the dark uniform of what he had finally revealed to be the Human Intelligence Coordination Office, an organization that officially didn't exist, but had been protecting human interests and galactic stability for over a century. Status report? Zara asked. All assets in position, Marcus replied, consulting a device that projected holographic displays around his wrist. Phase 1 is ready for implementation. Phase 1 had been months in the planning. Every hegemony ship in the fleet carried human personnel in support roles, technicians, maintenance workers, communication specialists, and other positions deemed too menial for hegemony citizens. What the Dominari didn't know was that every one of those humans was a trained operative with detailed knowledge of hegemony systems and technology. Execute Phase 1, Zara ordered. Throughout the hegemony fleet, hundreds of human operatives simultaneously began their work. They didn't sabotage the ships outright. That would have been too obvious and potentially deadly to innocent crew members. Instead, they implemented a series of subtle system modifications that would prove decisive when the fighting began. Weapons targeting systems suddenly required calibration procedures that would take hours to complete. Engine efficiency algorithms developed mysterious errors that reduced speed and maneuverability by 30%. Communication arrays began experiencing interference that degraded coordination between ships. Life support systems remained fully functional, but every other aspect of ship operation became significantly compromised. On the hegemony flagship, Admiral Vex Thrain was receiving reports from his ship commanders. Sir, we're experiencing technical difficulties across multiple systems. Engineering reports require several hours to restore full operational status. Impossible, Vex Thrain snarled. These ships were inspected and certified just days ago. How can the entire fleet be experiencing simultaneous malfunctions? His chief technical officer, a Dominari engineer named Kex Valen, studied the reports with growing confusion. The patterns don't match any known failure modes, sir. It's as if someone with intimate knowledge of our systems has deliberately introduced cascading errors designed to degrade performance without causing complete shutdown. Vex Thrane's eyes narrowed. You're suggesting sabotage? It's the only explanation that fits the data, sir. Then identify and eliminate the saboteurs immediately. But when security teams began investigating, they found no evidence of wrongdoing. Every human worker was performing their assigned duties with perfect compliance. System logs showed no unauthorized access or modification. The technical problems appeared to have developed spontaneously, despite the mathematical impossibility of such widespread simultaneous failures. Marcus watched the reports with satisfaction as they streamed in on his command displays. Phase 1 complete. Fleet operational capacity reduced to approximately 60%. Phase 2 ready for implementation. Phase 2 involved the colonial fleet itself, which had been carefully positioned to look smaller and weaker than it actually was. Ships had been disguised, weapons systems concealed, and alliance vessels hidden in asteroid fields and behind planetary bodies. The hegemony scouts had reported exactly what they had been meant to see: a desperate collection of obsolete vessels crewed by inferior species. All ships, implement Phase 2, Zara broadcast on encrypted channels. Throughout the system, colonial vessels began revealing their true capabilities. What had appeared to be cargo transports suddenly bristled with weapons that emerged from hidden bays. Mining ships activated shield generators that rivaled military-grade protection. Even the agricultural vessels began moving with the precision and coordination of trained warships. But the greatest surprise came from the human ships that had been hidden throughout the system. Vessels emerged from stealth fields and asteroid camouflage, revealing designs that incorporated the best technology from dozens of species. They moved with impossible grace and precision, their hybrid systems operating at efficiency levels that defied conventional engineering principles. Admiral Vex Thrane stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. Where did these ships come from? Our intelligence reported no significant military presence in this system. Sir, his tactical officer reported, we're detecting energy signatures consistent with advanced stealth technology. These vessels have been here all along, hidden from our sensors. Impossible. Only the hegemony possesses stealth capabilities of this sophistication. All did, Sensei. But as the hidden colonial fleet maneuvered into attack positions, it became clear that someone had indeed developed technology that matched or exceeded hegemony standards. The human ships, in particular, demonstrated capabilities that shouldn't have existed. Marcus activated his communication link to the hegemony flagship, his image appearing on their main screen alongside Zara. Admiral Vex Thrane, I am Director Marcus Chen of the Human Intelligence Coordination Office. I believe we need to discuss terms. Vex Thrane's confusion was evident. Human? You're claiming responsibility for this interference? Not claiming, Admiral, taking credit. Marcus brought up holographic displays that showed the true scope of human operations throughout hegemony space. For the past 73 years, humans have been documenting every illegal activity conducted by the hegemony. Every bribe, every assassination, every act of sabotage and destabilization. We have complete records of your secret operations in over 400 star systems. The displays showed shipping records, communication intercepts, financial transactions, and surveillance footage that chronicled decades of hegemony crimes. The evidence was overwhelming and irrefutable, gathered by human operatives who had been dismissed as insignificant by every hegemony official they had encountered. Furthermore, Marcus continued, we have been sharing our technology and knowledge with every species the hegemony planned to subjugate. The weapons you're facing were designed using collaborative engineering that incorporates the best innovations from 17 different civilizations. Your technological advantage has been eliminated. Vex Thrane's tactical displays confirmed what Marcus was saying. The colonial fleet was equipped with weapons and defensive systems that matched hegemony capabilities in every category. Moreover, the human ships showed technological signatures that were completely unknown, suggesting innovations beyond anything in hegemony databases. This is impossible, Vex Thrain insisted. Humans are a primitive species. You have no industrial base, no research facilities, no technological infrastructure capable of producing such advancements. Marcus smiled. Admiral, you've been making the same mistake that every advanced civilization makes when they encounter humanity. You assume that because we're new to space travel, we're primitive in every way. But humans have one advantage that no other species possesses: we learn from everyone. New displays appeared, showing human facilities hidden throughout the galaxy, research stations disguised as agricultural colonies, manufacturing centers operating as mining operations, and training facilities masquerading as educational institutions. The network was vast, sophisticated, and completely invisible to traditional intelligence methods. Every species we've encountered has taught us something, Marcus explained. The reptilians taught us advanced metallurgy. The gaseous beings shared atmospheric processing technology. The silicates showed us crystalline computing. The Catherians, despite their criminal tendencies, had interesting approaches to weapons design. We've spent 2 centuries absorbing knowledge and combining it in ways that no single species ever attempted. But more importantly, Zara added, humans taught us about cooperation. While the hegemony has ruled through fear and domination, humanity has built alliances based on mutual respect and shared benefit. The fleet you're facing isn't just colonial vessels with upgraded weapons. It's a true alliance of species working together toward common goals. Admiral Vex Thrain studied the tactical situation with growing unease. His fleet was compromised, outnumbered, and facing technology he didn't understand. But more than that, he was beginning to realize that this confrontation was not the easy conquest the hegemony had planned. This was a war they might actually lose. What do you want? He asked finally. Marcus's expression became serious. Complete withdrawal of hegemony forces from all colonial territories, formal recognition of colonial sovereignty by the Galactic Council, and full disclosure of all illegal activities conducted by the hegemony over the past century. Those terms are unacceptable. The hegemony will never. Admiral, Marcus interrupted. Let me make something clear. This conversation is being broadcast to every government in the galaxy. The evidence of hegemony crimes is already being presented to the Galactic Council. Your political authority is about to collapse, regardless of what happens here. He brought up new displays showing emergency sessions being conducted by governments throughout civilized space. The evidence that humans had gathered over decades was being presented simultaneously to hundreds of different political bodies, creating a coordinated revelation that would be impossible to suppress or dismiss. Your choice is simple, Zara continued. Withdraw now and face political consequences, or continue this fight and face military defeat followed by political consequences. Either way, the age of hegemony dominance is over. Admiral Vex Thrain looked at his compromised fleet, the superior colonial forces, and the undeniable evidence of his government's crimes. For a civilization that had ruled through strength and intimidation for over a millennium, the concept of defeat was almost incomprehensible. But as reports continued streaming in from across the galaxy, it became clear that the situation was beyond military resolution. Human networks were revealing hegemony secrets in every major system, coordinated with precision that spoke to planning and preparation that spanned decades. This wasn't just a military confrontation, it was a complete strategic defeat orchestrated by a species that everyone had dismissed as insignificant. The Hegemony Council will never agree to these terms. Vex, Thrain said, finally. The Hegemony Council no longer has a choice, Marcus replied. In approximately 6 hours, representatives from 43 different civilizations will present formal charges of war crimes and illegal interference to the Galactic Tribunal. The evidence we've provided will result in sanctions, reparations, and likely the dissolution of the hegemony as a political entity. You can either be part of the solution, Admiral, or you can go down with the ship. But either way, this ends today. The bridge of the hegemony flagship fell silent as Vex Thrain processed the magnitude of his situation. Everything he had believed about galactic power structures had been revealed as illusion. The primitive humans who worked in menial jobs throughout hegemony space had actually been conducting the most sophisticated intelligence operation in galactic history. Finally, with visible reluctance, Vex Thrain activated his fleet communication array. All hegemony vessels, stand down and prepare for withdrawal from colonial space. Operation Consolidation is hereby terminated. As the massive hegemony fleet began its retreat, Zara felt a profound sense of satisfaction. The greatest threat to colonial independence had been neutralized, not through superior firepower, but through superior intelligence, planning, and cooperation. Marcus stood beside her, watching the enemy ships disappear into hyperspace. "Well, Commander, I think we can safely say that humanity has officially announced its presence on the galactic stage." Zara nodded, still amazed by everything she had witnessed. "I have to ask, Marcus, how long have you been planning this?" "Since the day the first humans set foot on an alien world," he replied. "We knew that eventually we would encounter species that saw us as threats to be eliminated or resources to be exploited. We decided that when that day came, we would be ready. And now?" Marcus smiled. "Now we begin the real work, building a galaxy where species cooperate instead of dominate, where technology is shared instead of hoarded, and where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them." He gestured toward the displays, showing the ongoing political transformation across civilized space. The hegemony was just the beginning. There are other threats out there, other species that believe in rule through fear. Humanity will be ready for them too. As Zara watched the reports streaming in from across the galaxy, she realized that she had witnessed more than the defeat of a military force. She had seen the birth of a new type of civilization, one that gained power through cooperation rather than conquest. And at the center of it all were the humans, the species everyone had dismissed as primitive laborers, who had quietly become the most influential force in galactic politics. The field hand had indeed drawn his blade, and with it, he had changed the course of galactic history forever.